You've had meeting after meeting with your child's school because of the problem behaviors your child exhibits. You have been to several doctors hoping they have answers as to why your child has these behaviors, but you are lost. You finally get some answers from both the school and the doctors, but they seem to be saying completely different things and giving completely opposing reasons and diagnosis. What do you do? How do you help your child? I was presented this question of how do you know the difference between school identification and clinical diagnosis? And that's what I want to talk about today. Welcome to this episode of Special Education Decoded. Now, before we jump into how to know the difference between school identification and clinical diagnosis, I'm hoping you can help. On the bottom right-hand side of your screen, you're going to see a little logo with the word subscribe on it. Click that real quick. Thank you so much. The first thing you need to know is only doctors or clinicians can diagnose your child, where schools can only identify the behaviors. Let's talk about the medical diagnosis fact first. The WHO. The list of people who can make the medical diagnosis for you and your child are doctors, clinical child psychologists, pediatric neurologist psychologists, speech and language pathologists, or other qualified clinical professionals. The what and how. What is used to help diagnose your child, and how do they diagnose them? Clinical professionals use what is called DSM-5, which is a diagnostic and statistical manual of mental disabilities, 5th edition. Along with the DSM-5, clinicians will also do a complete physical exam and other medical testing, review your child's developmental milestones plus medical and family history, mental health assessments, parent interviews, teacher input, review of educational history. Cost? What is the cost of all of these assessments? Well, the parent will have to pay what their health insurance doesn't cover. Next, let's talk about the purpose for all of this information. And how do doctors use it? Well, for them to understand the cause of symptoms and to guide decisions on treatment. Give information to schools to help with the educational evaluation process. From a medical standpoint, a diagnosis alone is usually good enough for treatment. Now, treatment can be any of the therapeutic interventions: behavior therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy, individual counseling, medical treatment. Additional information, which is any additional information from the medical diagnosis standpoint. Conditions don't have to affect school performance in order to be diagnosed. Conditions are considered ongoing unless symptoms change and the diagnosis is reversed. A clinician should consider how the diagnostic process is helpful for educational planning. A diagnosis doesn't automatically qualify a child for special education. It might be enough for a 504 plan. Next, let's cover school identification process, starting with the WHO. The list of people who can make the school identification for you and your child. The IEP, or Individualized Education Plan team at your child's school. You, the parents, school administrators, all school personnel involved with educating your child. Next, let's talk about the what and how. What is used to help identify your child, and how do they identify them? They use classroom observations, review developmental milestones plus family medical history, standardize assessments on intellectual ability, speech, language skills, and more, mental health screening, parent interviews, teacher input, review of educational history. Next, let's talk about the cost. So what is the cost for all these assessments? Well, the assessments are all free if they are done through the public school special education program. Next, let's discuss the purpose. So what is the purpose for all of this information, and how do doctors use it? To determine if a child is eligible for special education. Entitles eligible students to the supports and services they need to get free and appropriate public education through an IEP. The same information may be used by a 504 committee at a school to determine 504 eligibility. Next, we're going to talk about additional information, which is any additional information from the school identification standpoint. Schools identify conditions based on the IDEA special education law. The law covers 13 categories of disability for services. special learning disability, other health impairments, autism spectrum disorder or ASD, emotional disturbance, speech or language impairment, visual impairment including blindness, deafness, hearing impairment, deaf-blindness, orthopedic impairment, intellectual disability, traumatic brain injury or TBI, mental disabilities. The school must identify learning and thinking differences that fall under one of these 13 categories. Most disabilities fall under specific learning disabilities. Conditions must affect a child's ability to function in the classroom or elsewhere in school at the time of identification. A child must be reassessed and issued a formal identification at least every 3 years. An IEP team might consider any available clinical information when considering if a child is eligible for special education services. A clinical diagnosis alone does not satisfy IDEA requirements for getting support and services. The same information may be used by the 504 committee at school to determine 504 eligibility. Educational services need more than a diagnosis. They require finding that a student is in need of special education services. Once a need is determined, the IEP team will determine what needs and services to provide to the child. Some of the services may be the same as the medical system, as well as other supports and specialized educational placements determined by the IEP team. The main differences between a medical diagnosis and an educational eligibility determination is the impact that the condition has on your child's learning. All this being said, it can be simplified in that a medical diagnosis does not guarantee your child will receive educational services under IDEA, but with the proper assessments from your school, your child can receive those services and be on their way to reaching their full potential. From all of us at SpecialEdResource.com, thank you for watching this episode of Special Education Decoded. We'll catch you in the next video.